Hey everyone, we know how hard it can be to keep up with the latest news in Israel, so if you haven't had the time to stay on top of what's what in the Holy Land with ILTV, have no worries. It's time for our new show this week in Israel, where we'll give you the scoop on everything you need to know about the last 7 days right from Tel Aviv. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, here to keep you informed. Well, today is the final day of Prince William's historic trip to Israel. Wrapping up the journey, the Duke of Cambridge visited the holy city of Jerusalem, where he overlooked the Mount of Olives and, of course, prayed for peace at the sacred Western Wall. He was even welcomed and allowed to enter the Dome of the Rock, a sacred Muslim site on the Temple Mount where non-Muslims are typically not allowed.
This concludes a very memorable trip for Prince William. To date, this is the first official state visit by a member of British royalty to the region in nearly 70 years. Needless to say, the trip was more than welcomed. Prince William also made a personal visit while in Jerusalem. He took time to visit the grave of his great-grandmother, Princess Alice of Battenberg, who's buried at the Church of St. Mary Magdalene. But we'd be remiss if we didn't mention our personal favorite highlight of the journey, a powwow with Israel's Eurovision champ, Netta Barzilai. Spectators jammed the streets trying to catch a glimpse of these two together yesterday afternoon. Though the UK scheduled the trip to be specifically non-political, certain details along the way may suggest otherwise. Yesterday, while meeting with Palestinian Authority President Mahmoud Abbas in the West Bank, Prince William seemingly recognized the state of Palestine by saying this.
And I'm very glad that our two countries work so closely together and have had success stories with education and relief work in the past. So long may that continue. And my sentiments are the same as yours in hoping that there's a lasting peace for the region.
On top of that, Prince William's official itinerary lists holy sites in Jerusalem as part of the occupied Palestinian territories. A gesture made clear by the fact that Prince William apparently refused to meet with Jerusalem's mayor, Nir Barkat. The United Kingdom may feel that such a meeting would have been a symbolic acceptance of Israel's claim to Jerusalem, which both Israel and the Palestinians see as their capital. Politics aside, though, it's hard to overstate just how thrilled people were to see a real-life actual prince in their midst. Hopefully, it won't be too long before the region gets another royal visitor.
An ultra-Orthodox member of the Knesset has just promised a boycott of Israel's El Al Airlines if the company removes any male Haredi passengers for refusing to sit next to women. This is the latest development in the massive debate of religious freedom versus gender discrimination, and it's engulfing Israel's national airliner.
The situation first escalated earlier this week when 4 male ultra-Orthodox passengers on a flight leaving New York refused to take their seats next to female passengers. The men apparently refused to even speak with female flight attendants trying to help. The resulting debate left the plane sitting on the runway at JFK Airport for over an hour. The airline's crew reportedly did not pressure the ultra-Orthodox passengers to take their seats. In the end, the situation was only resolved when 2 female passengers were reluctantly pressured into changing their seats. This isn't the first such incident on an El Al flight, but this time the outcry caught the attention of NICE Systems, one of the biggest tech firms in Israel. The CEO of NICE quickly announced that his company would no longer do business with El Al or with any company that practices discrimination based on gender, religion, or race. El Al apparently took this boycott seriously and a few hours later promised that next time the airline would remove any passenger from the plane for refusing to be seated next to a woman. Well, now United Torah Judaism Knesset member Yisrael Eichler is threatening another boycott if El Al does just that. According to Eichler, calling this practice gender discrimination is both malicious and anti-Semitic. According to him, no passenger has ever moved seats who didn't want to. But women's rights advocates say otherwise. In fact, there's already a legal precedent in place. If a female passenger can prove that an El Al flight attendant either in gesture or word encouraged them to move seats on these grounds, they may be able to sue El Al for upwards of $18,000. So, remember that, ladies.
Israelis in the northern part of the country just got a bit of a jump scare. An anti-aircraft Patriot missile was fired from the north, triggered by an incoming drone from Syrian airspace. For now, it's unclear whether the drone belonged to Syria, Iran, or someone else entirely. The army has confirmed that the enemy vessel retreated after the Patriot interceptor was launched. It wasn't immediately clear what prompted the firing of the anti-aircraft missile, but Israelis quickly posted photos and videos evidence all over the web, igniting anxiety that an enemy attack was underway. This wouldn't be the first time that the army has responded to an unmanned aircraft coming from Syria. This happened at least 3 times last year, with Israeli interceptors shooting down both Syrian and Hezbollah UAV drones. Rumor is still high that Israel and Russia have entered a secret deal to keep enemy forces out of southern Syria and away from Israel's front door. If such a deal has been made, this incursion of a drone would be either an accident or a deliberate provocation. The fact that it retreated after activating Israeli anti-aircraft defense likely means the former, but for now, it's unclear how this incident fits into the larger picture. The Israeli army has launched a series of targeted attacks against Hamas overnight in response to an increasing wave of incendiary terror attacks from Gaza. The IDF spokesperson's unit has confirmed that an attack was carried out targeting a vehicle that belongs to a Hamas operative involved in flaming kite and balloon attacks.
Incendiary devices like these have caused millions of dollars in damages, as well as untold damages to the environment surrounding Gaza. Just earlier on Tuesday, 5 different fires caused by Gazan arson were blazing across southern Israel, and all 5 of the fires were reportedly in the Be'eri and Kisufim forests. Israeli aircraft responded to the flaming kite and balloon flyers by targeting a vehicle used by a group of Palestinian arsonists, as well as at least 2 Hamas observation posts. Speaking on the situation, the IDF said that the Hamas terror organization will bear the consequences for facilitating terror and instability. Gazans didn't take the return fire lying down, however. Hamas said in a statement that a bombing will be met with a bombing. So elsewhere, while Israeli forces targeted the Hamas operative's vehicle, this morning a dozen rockets were fired from the Gaza Strip into Israeli territory. Red alert sirens were sounded all across the regions of Chof Ashkelon, Sha'ar HaNegev, Eshkol, and Sderot. The Iron Dome defense system was launched into action and intercepted at least 3 of the 12 projectiles, while the others were allowed to fall. Thankfully, there were no reports of injuries or damages at this time.
Speaking of the conflict, President Trump's Mideast envoy spent the weekend in Israel to discuss the upcoming release of the White House's still unseen peace plan. The team, led by Trump's son-in-law and special advisor Jared Kushner, has spent the last several days touring the region ahead of the plan's expected rollout. Though the envoy did not meet with any Palestinian leaders during the tour, Kushner has delivered a very specific message to the Palestinian people.
Speaking to the Arab-language Al-Quds newspaper, Kushner promised that he was ready to work with PA President Mahmoud Abbas for peace, despite the frozen ties. The Palestinians largely severed relations with the U.S. in their anger over President Trump's decision to recognize Jerusalem as Israel's capital and move the U.S. embassy accordingly. Palestinian leaders have all but rejected the Trump peace plan unseen, arguing that the U.S. unilaterally decided the fate of Jerusalem without either side negotiating. Still, Kushner urged the Palestinian people to at least consider their peace deal once the details are made public. The Trump administration claims the deal will not lean towards one side or the other. Trump has reportedly lobbied the Gulf nations to invest nearly $500 million into Gaza's economy to help sweeten the pot. Kushner has apparently admitted that he didn't personally reach out to Abbas or his team about setting up a meeting during this trip. With U.S.-Palestinian relations at an all-time low, it remains to be seen if both sides will even be willing to come to the negotiating table.
Israel has long accused Hamas of plunging the Gaza Strip into humanitarian crisis by using money to finance terror instead of helping its own people. Well, now Israel is stepping in with an offer that the people of Gaza may not be able to refuse. The deal would establish a seaport for Gaza on the island of Cyprus, and it's apparently already well in motion. ILTV's Brett Allen Smith is here with the details.
Thanks, Natasha. Hi. So this comes from Avigdor Lieberman's Department of Defense, actually. Now, the idea here is an offshore system of docks that would physically be located in Cyprus, but would funnel goods and trade exclusively for Palestinians in Gaza. Now, Israel would, of course, maintain a very firm security hold over the port, much as it does now with anything that comes in or out of the Strip, because they don't want weapons coming in or out. And the plan's still kind of coming into focus, but apparently Lieberman's already pitched to the president of Cyprus, and in just another few months we'll probably know a whole lot more of the logistics, how it would actually go down, but basically that's the idea.
Well, I mean, it's certainly an ambitious idea, and so obviously Israel and Cyprus have already collaborated on this. Are the Palestinians likely to go for this idea?
Here's the thing. The Defense Department's not going even directly to present it to Hamas, which obviously controls infrastructure in the Strip. They're going to pitch it publicly to the 2 million Palestinians in Gaza as a kind of take it or leave it deal. And I think the strategy here is obviously to, let's say, undermine Hamas's leadership in the Strip, because if the people say, hey, this is great, this is just what we've been campaigning for and fighting for, and Hamas doesn't go for it, that's really going to put Hamas in a bad place with the people that they say that they're governing. Having said that, there's another big condition here. Israel is willing to help assemble foreign funding to put this project, make it happen, only if Hamas agrees to release 2 Israelis and 2 bodies of 2 IDF soldiers currently held in the Strip by Hamas. And those negotiations have rarely budged even an inch in the last few years. So that's a very big if that we're looking at right now.
Certainly. I mean, this would be a major win for the Palestinians in Gaza. I mean, obviously Israel would want something in return for the aid, especially since these are prisoners that we're talking about, but the likelihood of Hamas giving in here.
I think at this point it's pretty clear that Hamas will have to make some kind of compromise somewhere before Gaza just completely collapses. I mean, we keep hearing these rumors, right, of a long-term ceasefire on the table, or even like a prisoner swap down the line somewhere. But then, rockets get fired from the Strip, Israeli IDF forces counterattacks, and then the dance just kind of goes on and on. But at the end of the day, the people of Gaza, they really need help. I mean, they need medicine, food, electricity, all kinds of basic infrastructure. And of course, they need someone to prioritize that above all else and to organize it, which is not easy.
It will be interesting to see if there's going to be a public push towards getting Hamas to budge on the issue of these prisoners, and if that will be effective, because I don't know if you know anything about this, but has there been any public push in terms of dealing with that specific issue?
There's been a lot of push. It comes from, and now it's not just Israel pushing for it. We have the Red Cross, we have NGOs fighting for it. I think other Arab nations have joined. Probably they've been lobbied by Israel or by the U.S. to say, hey, make this a priority, make this happen, because that is a big sticking point in even just a demonstration of trust, of goodwill, of peace. I mean, that's a bridge that needs a lot of building and mending to maintain for any deal like this, like this seaport, for example.
Well, and Cyprus was selected because of its proximity to the Gaza Strip. That's why this is happening between Israel and Cyprus.
Israel also has a lot of ties with Cyprus. Cyprus is strategically, it's quite far off in the Mediterranean, so that, again, that buffer zone could create a lot of control from the Israeli point of view to have a control over security that comes in and out. So.
All right. Well, we can only hope that Palestinian leaders will see it that way.
Yep.
And, at the end of the day, the painful truth about this particular crisis is that it's been the average citizens of Gaza who have suffered the most. So hopefully, something happens here. Thanks for joining us, Brett.
Of course.
There's just been yet another victory for chained wives, or Jewish women who are refused a religious divorce. The Knesset yesterday passed a new law that would allow non-Israeli Jewish women abroad the opportunity to apply for divorce in Israeli rabbinical courts. Now, the law was passed in a vote of 42 to 24 with 2 abstentions, and here with more is ILTV's Aaron Porras. So, Aaron, what are the details of this bill?
Well, as you know, the issue of chained wives has been a very contentious one for a long time. And since without getting the get or the religious divorce document, a Jew cannot remarry, and only the husband can issue the get. So the only exception to this is in extreme cases, which we've actually seen recently, and the rabbinical courts typically exhaust every other option, including sanctions, excommunication, and jail time here in Israel, before going over the husband's head. So what this law does is it paves the way for Jewish chained wives anywhere to get the get through Israel's rabbinical courts.
So on the surface, this is amazing, but I understand that there are limits to this law as well, right?
Yeah, first the law will only be in effect for 3 years, and that's likely to function as a sort of trial period. Then with respect to the international cases, the religious courts will only be able to decide on the divorce itself, but none of the divorce-related issues like custody of children or separation of assets. Further, there are many requirements that must be met abroad before the case can actually be brought before the Israeli system. That being said, there are others who call this a watered-down version of the original bill for, many other reasons too. Originally, the bill would have applied to chained wives and husbands, but now only applies to wives. It was also set to apply to both Jewish religious and civil divorce proceedings, but the civil part was removed.
And I also understand that there were fears raised in the Knesset by opposition Knesset member Yael Cohen-Paran, who argued that this really is just a power grab at the end of the day.
Sure, yeah, that's definitely something that many people fear. Meretz MK Michal Rosen also raised concerns, pointing out that it's not even like Israel has this issue figured out locally, and yet Israel is now going to be able to decide on cases abroad, which is a good point, but clearly by the vote, people are excited by at least the prospect of more options in these terrible situations.
All right. Thanks, Aaron.
Thank you.
It's looking like it's a done deal, my friends. We've just learned that Eurovision 2019 will most likely end up in Tel Aviv after all. A top official in the finance ministry has just told reporters that Tel Aviv's convention center is the only venue in the country that meets all of the requirements for the show. And that's according to reports. Jerusalem isn't even in the running for hosting duties after all.
Wonder Woman, don't you ever forget, you're divine and he's about to regret.
This news doesn't come as a complete shock. Last year's Eurovision saw some 18,000 spectators come from all over the world, and the convention center in Tel Aviv is the only stadium with enough seats to accommodate such a huge crowd. The entire production itself is also a massively expensive effort, which requires round-the-clock work, rehearsals and preparations 7 days a week, including Shabbat, which is one big reason why production would be problematic in Jerusalem. Though Israel has held Eurovision in Jerusalem in the past, things have changed both in terms of scope and in politics. Israeli politicians were initially adamant that the show be held in Jerusalem, because Israel sees the holy city as its capital. But in light of President Trump's decision to relocate the U.S. Embassy to Jerusalem, fierce political opposition has reignited the debate over Jerusalem. This all came to a head earlier this month when Argentina canceled a friendly soccer match with the Israeli national team, after the Knesset moved the match from Haifa to Jerusalem. Political division and alleged backdoor deals within the Israeli Culture Ministry eventually caused Argentina to cancel. The government clearly wanted to avoid a potential repeat with Eurovision 2019. All the more reason we can probably expect to see next year's party in Tel Aviv.
We have not one but two shocking developments related to the indictment of the Prime Minister's wife, Sarah Netanyahu, who allegedly misused state funds systematically. The car of the former manager of the Prime Minister's former residence, Meni Naftali, has just been torched, and it was Naftali who successfully sued Sarah Netanyahu for abuse and has provided testimony in these new charges.
Police suspect a deliberate arson attack. On top of that, excerpts of a tape recording documenting the alleged crimes have just been leaked to the press. The recordings were made by Netanyahu's former advisor, Nir Hefetz, who has since turned state's witness and testified against the prime minister in at least 2 corruption investigations. The tape was apparently made back in 2010 and documents a conversation between himself and attorney Shlomit Barnea Farago, the legal advisor of the prime minister's office. The two openly discuss what seems to be an ongoing plan to deceive journalists, as well as investigators, in order to, quote, protect the prime minister so that he doesn't get involved in these things. Regarding Sarah Netanyahu, Hefetz says that, quote, I think she does all kinds of tricks in the hotel bills abroad to hide all kinds of expenses. He goes on to suggest that the prime minister's wife illicitly packs up to 4 or 5 suitcases of dirty personal laundry for trips abroad, which she brings specifically so that the foreign hotels can dry clean them. The PM's attorney then says, quote, but that's misuse of public funds, bringing laundry you're not even going to use there so it can just be cleaned. They go on to discuss allegedly illicit gifts as well as cover stories seemingly used to evade journalists' questions. Both the Prime Minister and his wife have consistently maintained that they've done nothing wrong in any of these alleged corruption allegations, and that nothing will come from any of the investigations.
Israeli startups hoping to expand to the United States are about to get a major break. The United States will soon fast-track a new visa program granting Israelis the ability to apply for the E2 visa. The E2 is specifically designed for foreign companies and investors who intend to create a business in America and generate new American jobs. And obviously, this could be a big win-win for both the American market and the startup nation.
This program is a long time coming. America and Israel actually inked a deal to make this happen some years ago. But the proposition required Israel to extend the same visa exemptions for American businesses trying to expand to the Israeli market. The Israeli government has finally fulfilled that requirement with the creation of the B5 visa. The B5 pretty much does in Israel what the E2 does in the United States. Applicants hoping to get the E2 will need to prove how their business will generate money to sustain itself in the United States. And they need to demonstrate an intent to return to Israel and require an active American business registration. But once approved, the E2 is good for 2 years and can be renewed indefinitely as long as the requirements are met. While Israelis are regularly approved for tourist visas to the United States with no problem, getting a work visa or a green card has become more complicated in the last year. Hundreds of Israelis fly to the United States every year and work illegally. While the E2 would certainly help business leaders and entrepreneurs come to America, it remains to be seen if this will eventually filter down to those merely seeking work in the United States.
Summer is here in all of its sweltering glory, and that's why ILTV's Emmanuel Kadosh is here with the top 5 new Israeli swimsuit styles to help you find the perfect tan line. Take it away, Emmanuel.
If you've ever visited the Holy Land during the summer heat, you can understand why Israelis are obsessed with their bathing suits. With this humidity, we'd all rather be in swimsuits all day, every day. And that's why I'm here to update you guys on the top 5 emerging Israeli swimwear designers you must know about. First up, you may already recognize the brand Bananha, designed by Israeli models Neta Alchemister and Noah Benny, both with their fair share of Instagram followers, Neta with over 1.1 million. The two launched the line back in 2014 after finishing their mandatory army service and quickly rose to fame. Their collections range from bikinis to one-pieces and most recently even men's swimwear. So all you gotta do is pick your favorite. Lilo Swim is second on our list. These more sophisticated swimsuits can be seen worn by Israeli it girls all over the country, and it's no surprise. The founders Lee and Laureen Alon are fashion bloggers and social media influencers and can be seen tagged all over Instagram. The sister duo launched the brand back in 2016 that includes one-pieces with very sexy plunging necklines, and of course bikinis with some belted details. If you haven't checked out their Instagram already, you literally may be the only one. Third up is swimwear brand Billy Blonde. It's easy to see the Mediterranean inspiration behind these designs created by Tel Aviv native Hila Weinberg. The brand focuses around luxury swimwear that flatters and sculpts the body while also keeping in mind Israel's laid-back beach culture. The collection includes bikinis, one-pieces, and even a few reversible styles with thoughtful details. There even is a small collection for kids so everyone can grab a bathing suit. Beach's swimwear is fourth on our list. This brand was created out of the need to feel comfortable, secure, and feminine in a swimsuit, and that's exactly what designer Irit Grumi did. Most of the styles are one-pieces and can even be paired with a tie-on swimsuit belt that flatters the body. The colors of muted pastels mixed with gray and jewel tones make the collection stand out, so if you're looking for comfortable yet sexy swimsuits, this is the brand to shop. Last but of course not least, the brand Weekends At, which creates stylish and playful swimsuits for men. Founded just last year by Olympic swimmer Guy Barnea, who repped Israel in the 2008 Olympics, the collection offers colorful prints in 3 different styles: breezy, breezier, and then tailored. So there you go, men, the hottest Israeli swimwear brand available now. That's all for today's top 5. Back to you.
That's it for this week's Roundup. Tune in next Friday for our next episode of This Week in Israel. I'm Natasha Kirchuk, and thanks for joining us from Tel Aviv.